Good evening, everyone. We begin the readout tonight with the intense skepticism over Russia's pledge to scale back military operations in Kyiv. Of course, by invading Ukraine in the first place, Russian President Vladimir Putin violated his neighbor's sovereignty, flouting norms and breaking international law, which is why Ukrainian and U.S. officials were dubious of Moscow's claim that it would drastically reduce military operations around the Ukrainian capital. Despite their rhetoric during peace talks in Turkey, the shelling has continued. In other words, there is what Russia says and what Russia does. And what Russia continues to do is to indiscriminately bomb cities, homes, hospitals, buildings, and schools. Two main regions mentioned during the peace talks were Kyiv and Cherniv. But not even a full day after those talks, regional officials in Ukraine say Cherniv and other towns outside Kyiv were bombed overnight by Russian forces, while another city, Mariupol, still fights for its survival. Here are satellite images of that city published Tuesday by Maxar Technologies, the once bustling coastal port city that citizens now describe as hell, leveled by Russian artillery, shelling, and airstrikes. Meanwhile, it is uncertain Putin himself is being accurately briefed on his own invasion. A U.S. official provided NBC News with declassified intelligence, claiming that there is persistent tension between Putin and the Russian Ministry of Defense, allegedly because Putin's senior advisors are too afraid to tell him the truth about Russia's battlefield failures. Putin allegedly being misinformed is just another reason Ukraine and its allies have little reason to believe anything that Russia says. The reality of the situation on the ground is more than dire. And unlike Putin, the rest of the world is seeing the inhumane consequences of this war through countless interviews with refugees, like this elderly couple rescued by Ukrainian troops yesterday.
I don't have anyone, she tells the emergency worker. I don't have anyone at all. Her husband and her have been sheltering in their basement for a month. She gulps her tea with sheer relief. It's her first hot drink for weeks. They've had no electricity, gas, or water.
Today, President Biden told Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky that the U.S. will send an additional $500 million in aid to the Ukrainian people. And that aid cannot come soon enough. The United Nations says the number of refugees fleeing the country has now surpassed a staggering 4 million. 4 million people in just 5 weeks. It's a number that strikes at the heart of the matter. The Ukrainian people, most of all, have no reason to believe anything that Putin says. Joining me now from Lviv is Ali Velshi, MSNBC correspondent and the host of Velshi. This is a humanitarian disaster. Those pictures of Mariupol are shocking and terrifying. It looks like, Armageddon. Tell us what's going on there. And have you talked to anybody who believes in this idea that Russia is pulling back?
No, zero people at all. In fact, there's no trust here in Ukraine, or at least with the people I've been talking to or the refugees that I spoke to in Hungary and Poland, for anything that Vladimir Putin says, because right from the beginning, he's been disingenuous about what this effort actually was. So there was no sense when these negotiations were going on that they were meaningful, and there was no sense that anybody in Ukraine wanted Ukraine to give up anything, any land or territory in exchange for peace, because they said we didn't want this war in the first place. Joy, you showed that woman taking that sip of hot tea. How many times you and I were on TV together a month ago when I was at that train station in Budapest where people got their first hot drink or their first sandwich. This desperation. Think about this. 4 million refugees out of the country, more than 6 million in the country. In fact, where I am in Lviv is full of people from the east, from Kyiv and places like that. And I will remind you that Ukraine, before this war, was the poorest country in Europe, the lowest GDP per capita in all of Europe. Their tax base is low. They had trouble paying for things, which is why a lot of people thought their military won't be able to stand up against the Russian military. And obviously the spirit in the military and the civil defense has come through, but they need money, which is why the money that was authorized after an hour-long conversation between Zelensky and Biden today for $500 million, that money is going to go into the general budget. That's for paying salaries, for keeping government offices open, for helping people out who've lost their homes. Ukraine really needs that, in addition to the weaponry, in addition to the no-fly zone that Zelensky keeps asking for.
And very quickly, Ali, is there any sense of how long this country can keep this up? I mean, they have valiantly resisted what people thought was a superior army. Obviously not that superior because they weren't prepared, not motivated, doing a terrible job of what they're intended to do. But is there a sense that you're getting, even from Ukrainian officials, of how long they can keep this up?
No, I'm not getting that. They all want to go home. They all think they're going to go home. They're all clear that they're not going home in the next few weeks, everybody who's left. So they think this is probably a months-long thing. And when you speak to certain members of parliament and stuff, they start talking about a Marshall Plan type of thing, that what they want when this is over is for Europe and the world to invest in rebuilding Ukraine, and that could work out quite well. It worked out very well for Germany. Everybody's thinking about that. So they're thinking in terms of Ukraine will prevail. But in the short term, when you see these images that you were showing right at the top of the show of Mariupol, of Cherniv, of Kharkiv, this is devastating, and people understand that there's not going to be a quick end to this. They just hope that their president's constant pleas to the West will result in something that is meaningful, that finally, nails this thing for Russia and gets them to pull out.
Yeah, indeed. Well, he's done heroic work. I mean, I think the whole world is moved by Volodymyr Zelensky. And I thank you, my friend, Ali Velshi, who is doing yeoman's work, not only doing this and coming on and being kind enough to be on with me, but also hosting the 9 p.m. and doing a brilliant job of that. I'd never miss it. Ali, you're the best. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you. Cheers. And I'm joined now by Naveed Jamali, editor at Newsweek and a former FBI double agent, and Charles Carithers, former staffer for the House Homeland Security Committee advising Chairman Benny Thompson, who is now principal of the consulting firm Cornerstone Government Affairs. And it's great to have you both on. And Naveed, my friend, as well. Do you have a sense, just as a military guy, as somebody who knows intimately the way the Kremlin operates, the way the Russian government and officialdom operates, do you have a sense of how long Russia can keep this up? No one believes them. No one has trusted anything they say. Nothing they say has any credibility. They're claiming they're pulling back, but still bombing. Do you have any sense of how long they can keep this up?
Well, I think to answer that, it's really two questions, Joy, because I think that how long the Russians can keep this up is independent with how long Putin is going to try to force this on. Because I think that, any logical metric that you would use would say that the Russians should leave. I mean, they're not going to achieve their strategic goals. They are not going to remove Zelensky. It's unlikely that now will be able to take Kyiv. But that doesn't matter to Putin. And this is the fundamental problem, Joy, is that Putin has no peers. As we're hearing from the reports that came from NBC, there's a lot of consternation amongst his advisors. But that doesn't necessarily matter. He doesn't have anyone that he can turn to trust, to kind of walk him off this ledge. And I just don't know when Vladimir Putin will decide that he wants to stop. And, that's the major question when it comes to trying to figure out what happens next.
Just some notes here from NBC News reporting here. The U.S. officials told NBC News they believe, as I said, that he's being misinformed because of this fear that people have of him. And I'll ask you that question. Are you surprised by that? But they're also saying that Putin was unaware that the Russian military had used and lost conscript soldiers in Ukraine, saying that his lack of information showed a clear breakdown in the flow of accurate information to the Russian president. It sounds like he's deluded. But are you surprised that his own defense officials are afraid to tell him what's happening?
I think so. I think that it's, when it comes to Putin, look, Joy, he's a despot, right? I mean, I think that people are, the joke of Russia is, how does a Russian joke start? By looking over your shoulder. This is exactly what Russia has become. And I think that, you saw this with Saddam Hussein. It was clear that Saddam Hussein was losing, and his ministers were not, Baghdad Bob, like they were unwilling to tell him. Yeah. So it is a problem, and that makes this very dangerous, because I don't think Putin is operating in sort of a rational plane. Not to say he's crazy, but clearly he thinks for whatever reason he can be successful, and I don't think anyone around him has the heart to tell him that he probably can't.